The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched wide like the inside of a hollow moon. Light came from everywhere and nowhere, making the 17 alien delegations glow in their elevated seats. Each species sat in their own section, arranged in a circle that was meant to show equality, but really showed power. The oldest species sat highest. The newest sat lowest. And at the very bottom, standing on the floor like a student before teachers, was Ambassador Elena Vasquez of Earth. She had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. 3 years of learning alien customs, alien languages, alien ways of thinking. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times. She had memorized every gesture that might offend, every word that might confuse. Behind her, a holographic display showed humanity's proposal in 17 different languages at once. "The human species offers partnership," Elena said, her voice steady and clear. "We do not come asking for charity. We do not come begging for protection. We come offering what we have always offered each other throughout our history: alliance trade, shared knowledge, mutual defense against common threats." She pressed a button, and the display changed to show human achievements. The first moon landing, the first Mars colony, the generation ships that had carried humanity to distant stars, the orbital stations that now circled a dozen worlds. In 200 years of space travel, humanity has established 37 colonies. We have developed unique technologies that we believe would benefit all Council species. Our medicine can treat diseases that affect carbon-based and silicon-based life equally. Our engineers have created power systems that are simple, reliable, and easy to repair. We ask only for the chance to contribute. She paused, looking up at the assembled species with hope in her eyes. She had been told this would work. Her government had promised her that the Council was ready to accept humanity as a junior partner. They had been wrong. The Zelthari High Speaker rose from his seat at the highest point of the chamber. His body was made of living crystal, beautiful and terrible, catching the light and throwing rainbows across the walls. His species had ruled the Council for 3,000 years. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to farm. To them, humanity was a child species, barely worth noticing. "The Council appreciates your enthusiasm," the High Speaker said. His voice carried harmonic tones that made Elena want to bow her head. It was a biological weapon of sorts, a sound that triggered submission in most species. Elena fought against it and remained standing straight. But perhaps humanity should observe for another century before presuming to speak of alliances. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Kethra delegation, serpentine beings with scales of deep green, hissed their amusement. The Brevar, small creatures with too many eyes, clicked their mandibles in mockery. Even the Vorn, who had always been friendly to human traders, said nothing in humanity's defense. "Your species has been spacefaring for barely 200 years, the High Speaker continued, clearly enjoying himself. "You have no dreadnoughts, no empire, no legacy worth speaking of. Come back when you have accomplished something meaningful. Perhaps in 1,000 years we will listen." More laughter. More mockery. Elena felt heat rising to her face, but she did not let it show. She had been trained for this possibility. She had been told to accept rejection gracefully, to thank the Council for their time, to request another audience in the future. That was what her government expected. That was what the Council expected. Elena had never been good at doing what was expected. She closed her presentation with a single gesture. The holographic display behind her went dark. She gathered her materials calmly, placing each item in her case with careful precision. The laughter in the chamber slowly died as the delegations realized something was different. This was not the reaction they usually saw from rejected species. "Ambassador Vasquez," the High Speaker called out, his voice now carrying a hint of confusion. "The session is not concluded. There are formalities to complete, papers to sign. You must formally withdraw your petition and request scheduling for a future audience." Elena finished packing her case. She straightened her uniform, simple gray suit that suddenly seemed more dignified than all the flowing robes and ceremonial armor in the chamber. Then she turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. "Ambassador Vasquez," the High Speaker said again, louder now. "You cannot simply leave. There are protocols. There are traditions. No species has ever walked out of this chamber without completing the proper procedures. Elena stopped at the door. She turned, and the chamber saw her face clearly for the first time since the laughter had started. There was no anger there. No shame, no wounded pride. There was something else. Something that made the older species feel a strange chill, despite the perfect temperature of the room. Her expression was calm. Perfectly, absolutely calm. For humanity, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, this session is concluded. She walked through the door, and it sealed behind her. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the high speaker laughed, a crystalline sound that encouraged others to laugh as well. Wounded pride, he announced. A common failing among young species. They will return within a year, apologizing and begging for another chance. Mark my words. The other delegations nodded and clicked and hissed their agreement. The session continued with other business. By the time it ended, most had forgotten about the strange human woman, who had walked out of the Galactic Council. They would remember soon enough. Within 6 hours, every human diplomatic vessel had left Council space. Every ambassador, every trade representative, every cultural attaché. They departed without warning, without explanation, without the formal goodbyes that tradition demanded. Within 12 hours, humanity's borders went dark. No signals came from human space. No ships answered hails. Automated defense platforms appeared at every jump point leading to human territory, politely but firmly turning away all visitors. The Council sent messages demanding explanation. The messages were not answered. They sent official protests. The protests were ignored. They sent threats. The threats meant only silence. Let them sulk, the High Speaker told concerned advisors. They will grow hungry for trade soon enough. They will come crawling back. Then months, and humanity did not come back. They did not send apologies or requests for new audiences. They did not beg for trade agreements or protection treaties. They simply vanished behind their borders. And the great silence began. No one in the Council understood what that silence meant. No one imagined that behind those dark borders, humanity had stopped waiting for acceptance. They had stopped hoping for partnership. They had started building something new, and when they finished building it, the galaxy would never be the same. 18 months passed, and the galaxy forgot about humanity. Trade Representative Mollix of the Brewery Consortium was one of the few who remembered. His species had made good profit trading with humans before the walkout. Human goods were strange but useful. Their technology was not elegant like Zelthari crystal works or powerful like Kethra plasma weapons. It was simple, solid, and almost impossible to break. Frontier colonies loved human machines because they kept working when everything else failed. Mollix missed that profit. He had sent ships to the human border every month since the walkout, hoping for some sign that trade might resume. Every time his ships came back with the same report, the automated platforms were polite. They thanked the Brevari for their interest. They suggested returning at a later time. They did not explain when that time might be. But this month, his captains brought back something different. Not contact, but information. Their long-range sensors had picked up readings from deep inside human space. Readings that made no sense. Massive energy signatures, Captain Vex reported, her many eyes blinking in confusion. Construction activity on a scale we have never seen. Our sensors detected movement of asteroids, entire asteroids being pushed from one location to another. We recorded heat signatures suggesting industrial output greater than our entire consortium. Mollix felt his feeding tendrils twitch with unease. What are they building? Unknown. We could not get close enough for detailed scans. But whatever it is enormous. Mollix brought his concerns to the Council's Trade Committee. He showed them the sensor readings. He pointed to the energy signatures. He asked the question that had been keeping him awake during rest cycles. What if they are not sulking? What if they are preparing for something? The Zelthari representative laughed. Preparing for what? They have no military worth mentioning. They have no weapons that could threaten even a minor power. Let them play with their toys. When they tire of isolation, they will come begging for our attention. The Trade Committee dismissed Moloch's concerns, but word spread through the lower delegations. The species who did not have the Zelthari's confidence in their own superiority. The Vorn, in particular, paid attention. The Vorn had always found humans interesting. Both species were social creatures who formed strong bonds. Both species valued loyalty and friendship. The Vorn ambassador had maintained a secret channel of communication with his human contacts, a single thread of connection that both governments pretended not to know about. Through this channel, he learned troubling things. Humanity had recalled every citizen from galactic space, every scientist working in alien laboratories, every student studying at alien universities, every merchant living on alien stations. They had come home, all of them, answering a call that the Vorn ambassador did not fully understand. They are gathering their people, he told his government in a private report. All of them. This is not the action of a species planning to rejoin galactic society. This is the action of a species preparing for something else. But even the Vorn did not guess what that something else might be. Not until the Kethra made their move. The Kethra Dominion had never liked humanity. They saw the young species as competition, a nuisance that might one day grow into a threat. When humanity withdrew from galactic space, the Kethra saw opportunity. There was a star system on the border between Kethra and human territory, rich in rare minerals that both species had claimed. With humanity in isolation, the Kethra decided to take it. They sent a fleet of 50 warships, fast cruisers and heavy destroyers armed with the plasma weapons that made the Kethra feared throughout the galaxy. The fleet commander was General Sithrek, a veteran of 3 border wars, confident in his power. The humans will not fight, Sithrek told his officers. They have nothing that could stop us. We will claim the system, establish a mining operation, and present the council with a completed action. By the time anyone objects, it will be too late to change anything. The fleet crossed into the disputed system. They found the mineral-rich planet exactly where charts said it would be. They found something else as well. The human defense platform was small, almost laughably small compared to Kethra warships. It broadcast a simple message as the fleet approached. This system is claimed by the United Human Federation. Please turn back. This is your only warning. General Sithrak laughed. He ordered his weapons officers to destroy the platform and continue the mission. His weapons officers tried to comply. They found that their weapons would not fire. Their targeting systems showed errors that made no sense. Their plasma cannons reported that they were already firing. Even though nothing was happening, then the lights went out. Every ship in the fleet lost power at the same moment. Engines died. Life support failed. Artificial gravity stopped. 50 warships drifted in the darkness, helpless and confused. General Sithrak screamed orders that no one could hear. He tried to reach his officers, his crew, his other ships. Nothing worked. In the darkness, he felt something strange happening to his body. His thoughts became slow. His eyes became heavy. He tried to fight against it. The feeling was too strong. He slept. When the rescue fleet arrived 3 days later, they found all 50 ships drifting intact. Every crew member was alive, locked in some kind of stasis that the Kethra doctors could not explain. As the rescue ships approached, the crews began waking up. They were confused but unharmed. On every ship, on every display screen, a message appeared in perfect Kethra language. This is your only warning. General Sithrak filed his report with shaking hands. He described weapons that did not fire. He described power systems that failed instantly and completely. He described the sleep that had taken his entire fleet without a single shot being fired. The Kethra Dominion wanted revenge. They prepared a second fleet larger than the first. 100 warships this time, their most advanced weapons and their most experienced commanders. The High Arbiter of the Dominion reviewed the fleet before it departed. Find out what they did to our ships, he ordered, and make them pay. The second fleet crossed into human space. They found the same small defense platform. They received the same warning. This time, They were ready. Their technicians had studied the disabled ships and developed countermeasures. Their shields were reinforced. Their systems were protected. None of it mattered. The Second Fleet went dark in seconds. When rescue ships arrived, they found 100 warships drifting without power. Their crews locked in the same strange stasis. The same message glowed on every screen. This is your only warning, no Kethra. Fleet crossed into human space again. But the reports spread through the galaxy. Species that had laughed at humanity's withdrawal began to whisper different words. Species that had ignored the walkout began to ask questions. What had humanity become during their 18 months of silence? And what would happen when they finally broke that silence? The Vorn ambassador sent an urgent message through his secret channel, asking for any explanation his human contacts could provide. For the first time since the walkout, he received a response. It was short and simple. We are almost ready. Watch the skies. The ambassador did not know what that meant. He was not sure he wanted to know, but he watched the skies anyway and waited for whatever was coming. High Speaker Zetherlin called. The emergency session when the intelligence reports became impossible to ignore, the great chamber was full again. But the mood was different than it had been 18 months ago. There was no laughter now. The Kethra delegation sat in angry silence, humiliated by the failure of their fleets. The Bravari twitched nervously, calculating losses from 18 months without human trade. Even the Zelthari seemed less certain than before. We have gathered to discuss the human situation, the High Speaker announced. Recent events have made clear that the situation requires our attention. The Vorn ambassador rose from his seat. His species was not powerful in military terms, but they were respected for their honesty and their intelligence. When the Vorn spoke, others listened. I have maintained limited contact with human sources, the ambassador said. The admission caused murmurs throughout the chamber, but no one interrupted. Everyone wanted to hear what he had learned. What I am about to share will be difficult to believe. I ask that you listen completely before responding. He activated his own holographic display, showing data his sources had provided. The images made no sense at first. Strange shapes around a star, massive structures in space, ships that looked unlike anything the galaxy had ever produced. In 18 months of isolation, the Vorn ambassador said, humanity has changed completely. First, their governments. Humans have always been divided into separate nations that competed with each other. This division has ended. Every human government has merged into a single body they call the United Human Federation. For the first time in their history, they speak with one voice. Impressive, but not significant, the Zelthari weapons minister said. Political unity does not create military power. Please allow me to continue. The ambassador changed the display to show detailed readings from human space. This is their star. This is what they have built around it. Silence fell over the chamber. The images showed 11 massive curved structures arranged around the human sun. Each structure was larger than most planets. Together, they formed a partial shell that captured a significant portion of the star's energy output. Dyson swarm segments, the weapons minister whispered. That is impossible. Such construction requires centuries of they completed it in 14 months, the Vorn ambassador said. Our best analysis suggests they found ways to automate asteroid mining and construction on a scale we have never imagined. They did not build these structures piece by piece. They created machines that built other machines, which built other machines in an endless chain of production. What would take us centuries they accomplished in over a year. The chamber erupted in confused voices. Species accused the Vorn of lying. Others demanded to see proof. The Kethra delegation hissed with a mixture of fear and disbelief. The High Speaker raised a crystalline hand, and silence returned. Even if this is true, he said carefully, energy collection does not explain what happened to the Kethra fleets. How did they disable 100 warships without firing a single shot? The Vorn ambassador changed the display again. This time, the images showed a human ship appearing from nothing. One moment, empty space. The next moment, a vessel that had not traveled through normal space at all. They call it fold space technology, the ambassador said. Our scientists have studied the sensor readings from the Kethra encounters. They cannot explain how it works. They can only describe what it does. Human ships can move from one location to another instantly, with no visible transition. There is no engine signature. There is no energy trail. They simply appear wherever they wish to be. The weapons minister stood abruptly. This is fantasy. This is not possible. We have studied space travel for 3,000 years. We would know if such technology could exist. The Kethra thought their shields would protect them, the ambassador replied quietly. They were wrong. I suggest we consider the possibility that we are also wrong about what is and is not possible. He showed the final set of images. Weapons readings from the Kethra engagement. The data was incomplete because Kethra sensors had failed almost immediately, but what it showed was terrifying. Human weapons had bypassed shields entirely. They had disabled power systems without causing damage. They had induced sleep in every crew member simultaneously. Most importantly, the ambassador said, they did all of this without killing anyone. The Kethra sent 150 warships into human space. Every ship was disabled. Every crew member was captured. Not a single Kethra died. You speak as if this is good news, the Kethra representative said, his scales dark with anger. I speak as if it is the most important news you will ever hear. The ambassador turned to address the full chamber. They could have killed everyone. They had the power to destroy those fleets completely. Instead, they chose to demonstrate their capabilities without taking a single life. They want us to understand something. What? Demanded the High Speaker. They are not our enemies? That they never wanted to be our enemies? 18 months ago, Ambassador Vasquez stood where I am standing and offered partnership. We laughed at her. We mocked her species. We told them to come back in 1,000 years. The ambassador paused, letting his words sink in. They have accomplished in 18 months what we could not accomplish in 3,000 years, and they still do not want war. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the reality of the situation was beginning to settle in. This was not a minor species having a tantrum. This was not wounded pride that would fade with time. Humanity had transformed itself into something unprecedented, and the galaxy had no idea how to respond. What do they want? The High Speaker asked. His voice had lost its usual confidence. For the first time in living memory, he sounded uncertain. I do not know, the Vorn ambassador admitted, but I believe we will find out soon. My sources tell me that humanity's almost ready to break their silence. When they do, I suggest we listen more carefully than we listened 18 months ago. The emergency session continued for hours, but no decisions were made. The council was paralyzed by fear and confusion. Some species wanted to attack humanity before they grew stronger. Others wanted to offer immediate surrender. Most wanted simply to wait and hope that the problem would solve itself. The High Speaker dismissed the session with no resolution. As the delegations departed, they looked up at the sky, wondering what was coming. The silence from human space continued, but it felt different now. It was not the silence of a species hiding in shame. It was the silence of a species waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, the galaxy would learn what happened. When humanity stopped asking for respect and started demanding it, the message arrived everywhere at once. It appeared on council communication networks that were supposed to be impossible to access from outside. It appeared on military channels protected by encryption that had never been broken. It appeared on personal devices, public screens, and private terminals. Every species received it at the same moment, in their own language. Written with perfect grammar and cultural understanding, High Speaker Zetherlon was in his private chambers when the message appeared on his personal display. He read it 3 times before accepting that it was real. The Galactic Council dismissed humanity as children playing at civilization. We have since matured. We now extend a final invitation. Representatives may travel to Sol System to discuss terms of mutual cooperation. You will come as guests, not as superiors. You will find we have long memories, but we are not without mercy. This invitation expires in 30 standard days. The signature at the bottom was simple: the United Human Federation. Within hours, the council was in chaos. Urgency sessions ran day and night. Delegations screamed at each other across the great chamber. Old alliances crumbled. New factions formed. Fear made enemies of former friends. The Zelthari demanded that the invitation be rejected. "We do not answer summons from lesser species," the weapons minister declared. "If we go to them now, we admit that they have power over us. Better to remain strong and force them to come to us." The Kethra disagreed violently. Their fleets had been humiliated. Their military reputation was destroyed. They wanted to accept the invitation immediately, hoping to repair the damage before it spread further. "Pride means nothing if we are destroyed," the Kethra representative argued. "We must know what they want. We must find a way to negotiate." The Breviary calculated economic projections and panicked. 18 months without human trade had already hurt their consortium. The thought of permanent exclusion from human technology made their feeding tendrils curl with distress. They supported accepting the invitation, but wanted guarantees of safety. Smaller species watched the larger argue and said nothing. They understood something that the great empires refused to admit. The balance of power had shifted. The rules of the galaxy had changed. Humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist. They were offering one final chance for the old powers to adapt. The Vorn ambassador spoke on the 12th day of debate. The chamber was exhausted, tempers were raw, and no decision had been reached. His words cut through the noise with simple clarity. "We spent 3,000 years building our civilization," he said. "We are proud of what we have accomplished. They have a right to be proud. But humanity built something greater in 18 months, and they did it while they were angry. They did it while they were insulted and dismissed. Imagine what they might build if we give them a reason to be truly afraid." He let the question hang in the air. "They are offering us a chance to talk. They are not demanding surrender. They are not threatening destruction. They are inviting us to come to their home as guests. This is more generous than we deserve, after how we treated them. I suggest we accept before they decide we are not worth the effort." The debate continued, but the Vorn's words had planted seeds of doubt in even the proudest delegations. On the 15th day, a vote was called. The invitation would be accepted. A delegation would be assembled. They would travel to Sol System and learn what humanity wanted. But who would go? The High Speaker refused. His pride would not allow him to present himself as a petitioner before a species he had mocked. The Weapons Minister refused for the same reason. Most senior officials found excuses to stay behind. In the end, the delegation was assembled from secondary representatives. Mid-level diplomats who were important enough to show respect, but not so important that their loss would cripple any government. 17 representatives of 17 species. They boarded a diplomatic vessel with no weapons and no military escort. The terms of the invitation had been clear. They would come as guests, not as threats. Any show of force would be considered a rejection of humanity's offer. The journey to Sol System took 3 days through normal space lanes. As they traveled, the delegation reviewed everything they knew about humanity. They studied human history, human culture, human psychology. They practiced human greeting customs and memorized human diplomatic protocols. None of it prepared them for what they found as their ship crossed into human space. Long-range sensors began detecting structures that defied understanding. The Dyson swarm segments around the Sun were even more impressive than the Vorn had described. Orbital stations the size of small moons hung in perfect formation around every planet. Ships moved through the system in numbers that suggested a population far larger than anyone had estimated, and everywhere. That strange energy signature that their scientists could not explain, the hum of fold space technology, the power of a civilization that had leaped forward by centuries in less than 2 years. A single human vessel approached to escort them. It was small and unassuming, nothing like the massive warships that the Council species favored. But the delegation's sensors showed that the small ship generated more power than their entire diplomatic vessel. "Welcome to Sol System," a familiar voice said over the communication channel. "This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez. I will escort you to Earth." The delegation members looked at each other with a mixture of recognition and unease. They remembered this woman. They remembered her standing in the council chamber, offering partnership. They remembered how she had been laughed at. They remembered how she had walked out without looking back. 18 months later, she was escorting the council's representatives to humanity's home. The irony was not lost on anyone. The journey to Earth took an hour. Elena's ship led them past wonders that made the delegation stare in silent amazement. Shipyards that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Research stations filled with scientists working on projects beyond comprehension. Defense platforms that radiated power strong enough to be felt through hull plating, and everywhere, humans. Working, building, creating. Not preparing for war, but preparing for something greater. The delegation had expected to find an angry species ready for revenge. Instead, they found a species focused on growth, on progress, on becoming more than they had been. Earth itself was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds drifting across the atmosphere. Looked peaceful, welcoming. Nothing like the home of a species that had just transformed galactic politics. Elena guided their ship to a landing platform near a modest building that served as humanity's new unified government center. It was not a palace or a fortress. It was a simple structure, functional and unpretentious. As the delegation disembarked, Elena was waiting for them. She wore the same gray uniform she had worn in the council chamber. Her expression was calm, neither hostile nor overly friendly. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "Humanity's pleased you could finally make time in your schedule." The Zelthari representative winced at the obvious reference to the High Speaker's words from 18 months ago. The other delegates said nothing, unsure how to respond to a species that now held power they could barely imagine. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Please follow me. We have much to discuss, and your invitation expires in 15 days. The delegation followed her into the building, walking toward a conversation that would shape the future of the galaxy. They had come expecting to negotiate from weakness. They were about to learn that humanity had never been interested in weakness or strength. They had always wanted something else entirely. The negotiation chamber was nothing like the council's great amphitheater. There were no elevated seats. There were no sections arranged by power or seniority. There was only a round table with 18 chairs, all the same height, all the same distance from the center. A simple room for a simple purpose. 17 council representatives and 1 human ambassador meeting as equals. The symbolism was obvious. The delegation understood it immediately. Whether they accepted it was another matter. Elena Vasquez waited until everyone was seated before she spoke. Her voice was calm, neither aggressive nor submissive. She spoke like someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. 18 months ago, I stood in the council chamber and offered partnership. Humanity had been traveling among the stars for 200 years. We had built colonies. We had developed technologies. We had proven ourselves capable of contributing to galactic civilization. We asked only for the chance to be heard. She pressed a button on the table, and a holographic display appeared above the center. It showed the original proposal she had presented to the council. The same charts, the same data. The same offer of mutual defense and shared knowledge. "This offer remains open," she said. "We have not changed a single word. We have not added new demands. We have not asked for reparations or apologies. Everything we wanted 18 months ago is exactly what we want today." The Zelthari representative, a younger speaker named Velthan, who had been sent because no elder would lower themselves, leaned forward with confusion on his crystalline features. Then why the demonstration? Why humiliate the Kethra? Why develop weapons that could destroy any fleet in the galaxy? If you want a partnership, why terrify us into coming here? Elena's expression softened slightly. It was the first genuine emotion she had shown since the delegation arrived, because you needed to understand something important. You needed to understand that we do not need you. The words hung in the air. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. 18 months ago, we came to the council asking for acceptance. We wanted to be part of galactic civilization. We wanted allies and trading partners and friends. When you rejected us, we had a choice to make. We could accept your judgment and wait another 1,000 years for your approval. Or we could prove that your judgment was wrong. She stood and walked slowly around the table, looking at each delegate in turn. We chose to prove you wrong. Not through war. Not through conquest. We do not want to rule this galaxy. We never did. We proved you wrong by becoming undeniable. By building technology you cannot match. By developing power you cannot threaten. By making absolutely clear that humanity's place in this galaxy will be determined by humanity, not by the Council's permission. She returned to her seat and sat down. Now you know the truth. We could conquer every species in this room. We could demand tribute and obedience. We could take everything we want by force, but we are not here to threaten you. We are here to offer the same partnership we offered before. The only difference is that now you understand we are offering it as a choice, not as a necessity. The Kethra representative, whose scales had been dark with anger since the Kethra fleet's humiliation, finally spoke. His voice was bitter, but controlled. You expect us to forget what you did to our ships? To our warriors? You trapped them like animals and left them floating in the darkness. I expect you to remember what we did not do, Alina replied. Your warriors are alive. Every single one of them. They suffered no injuries. They experienced no pain. We could have destroyed those fleets in seconds. We chose to demonstrate our power without taking a single life. She leaned forward, her eyes meeting the Kethra representative's gaze without flinching. Humanity spent its entire history learning hard lessons about violence and revenge. We fought each other for thousands of years. We killed millions of our own kind in wars that accomplished nothing. By the time we reached the stars, we had learned that the best victories are the ones where enemies become friends. You call what we did humiliation. We call it mercy. We hope you can learn to see the difference. Silence filled the room. The delegation had come expecting demands and threats. Instead, they were hearing philosophy. It was confusing. It was unexpected. Some of them were beginning to realize exactly what humanity had been trying to say from the beginning. The Vorn ambassador spoke for the first time since entering the room. His voice was heavy with something that sounded like shame. We were fools. Some of us knew it at the time and said nothing. We watched the council mock your ambassador. And we remained silent because speaking up would have cost us nothing, but it might have made the powerful species angry. Our silence was its own insult, and for that I apologize. He extended a manipulator appendage across the table. Among the Vorn, this was the most serious gesture of bond forming, an offer of permanent alliance and friendship. How my people accept humanity's offer? Not because we fear you, although we do. We accept because you were right, and we were wrong, and it is time we admitted it. Alina reached across the table and touched the Vorn's appendage gently. The gesture was not traditional for humans, but she had learned alien customs well. We accept the Vorn as allies and friends. One by one, other delegates followed. The Bravari, eager to restore profitable trade relationships. The Malori, who had always been uncomfortable with the Council's arrogance. The small species who had been waiting for someone to challenge the old order. Even the Kethra representative, after a long internal struggle, lowered his crested head in acknowledgement. The Dominion does not apologize easily, but we recognize superior strategy when we see it. You defeated us without giving us anyone to hate. That is perhaps the cruelest victory possible. We accept your offer and hope that time will turn this partnership into something genuine. Finally, only the Zelthari representative remained. Velthan sat frozen in his chair, crystalline features shifting between colors that suggested conflicting emotions. For 3,000 years, his species had been the dominant power in galactic politics. Now they were being asked to accept a species they had dismissed as children as their equals. The High Speaker will be displeased, he said finally. He will call this surrender. He will accuse me of betraying our legacy, Lena nodded. Perhaps he will recognize that the galaxy has changed, and the Zelthari can either change with it or be left behind. Your species has survived for 3,000 years by being wise enough to adapt when adaptation was needed. This is such a time. She stood and walked around the table to stand beside him. She extended her hand, palm up, in the human gesture of offering. The High Speaker should have come himself. We would have had the same conversation. We might even have become friends. There is still time. There is always time if people are willing to start over. Velthan stared at the extended hand. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, No species had ever stood before the Zelthari as true equals. No species had ever offered partnership instead of submission. No species had ever shown the strength to demand respect and the wisdom to offer friendship at the same moment, until now, slowly. Carefully, Velthin reached out and took Elena's hand. The treaty was signed within a week. The terms were exactly as humanity had proposed 18 months earlier. Mutual defense, technology sharing, open borders, equal representation in a new council that would replace the old one. Nothing more, nothing less. When the High Speaker received the report, he raged for days. He demanded that Velthin be punished for accepting such terms. He insisted that the Zelthari withdraw from the agreement and prepare for war. His advisors quietly explained that war was no longer an option. Humanity's technology was too advanced. Their defenses were too strong. The other species had already accepted the new order. The Zelthari could join as equals or stand alone against everyone. In the end, even the High Speaker had to accept reality. The old council was gone. A new era had begun. Months later, when asked to explain how humanity had accomplished the impossible, the Vorn ambassador gave an answer that became famous throughout the galaxy. They did what they have always done. They were told something was impossible, and they refused to believe it. They were dismissed as irrelevant, and they chose to become undeniable. They were given every reason for revenge, and they chose to offer an open hand instead. He paused, thinking about the strange species that had changed everything. The humans have a saying. They call it the best revenge is living well. I believe we are only beginning to understand what they mean by that. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 1,000,000 stations, the new era began. Not with conquest or destruction, but with